So what I'm going to do is take that prepared tea, or decoction, and run it through this strainer here so we don't end up eating all the bits.
And there's some controversy about using a metal strainer, say, to a copper strainer or to a fabric strainer.
Yeah, you know, the fabric strainers are typically nylon, which is a plastic. I'd kind of rather use the metal than a plastic myself. The thing is even if we had a copper strainer, I just don't happen to have one. But that would be great. Gold is another one they used. I know the Chinese used, you know, for the emperors had, you know, everything was run through a gold strainer. The thing is we've got a steel blade in this Vitamix, and until we come up with a better technology, you know, it's going to come in contact with the metal anyway. I'm going to add to that one of my favorite herbs, and what I think are one of the most potent herbs. I highly recommend everybody get into adding this into their strategy. This is milk thistle seed. Now, the reason we didn't put the milk thistle seed directly into the tea is because it doesn't extract well in water. It's a fat-soluble substance, which means it needs an oil present to get it out. We're gonna blend it up and strain it out like a nut milk, and we're gonna add a fat to that to bind those molecules into the drink. I'm just gonna take a small handful of those, pour them right in there. Now, milk thistle heals the liver in every way. It can heal scar tissue and regenerate liver cells. It also cleanses the liver and protects the liver against all number of liver toxins, more powerfully probably than any substance known.
And pound per pound, if I had to buy that in a health food store in capsule form, you probably just threw in about $5 or $6 worth.
Right, but when we buy it in bulk like this, we're talking about pennies.
That's fantastic, and it actually tastes quite nice. I've been using milk thistle since you recommended it.
It tastes great, and it makes like a nice light nut milk. You could, if we were making a nut milk, you could throw that in with your almonds, your cashews, your macadamias, or whatever kind of nut milk you were making, and you could blend and strain it with those.
And it's nice, you didn't even have to soak those.
Yeah, you don't have to soak these. And what you could sprout them, soak them, and you could eat them like that, but their shells aren't real digestible. What we've done is just broke them all apart and exposed the inner kernel to the water there. Now that's all in there. And when we strain it through, all the shells will be left behind in the strainer here.
And again, you have that nice bamboo bowl.
So what we're left there, that pulp there is the shells of those milk thistle seeds. So that's all the indigestible parts that we're not going to have to add into our to burden our digestive system with now. Give that a rinse.
All right, so now you've got your
So we've got
liquid.
this decoction, which was the dandelion and yellow dock root, decocted in water. And then we've blended it into a nut milk with the milk thistle seed. I'm going to pour that back into my clean blender here. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to add a fat to it. Now here's why. Anytime you introduce a fat into your body, your liver has to produce bile in order to digest it. The molecules that are available in this tea, because of the dandelion and yellow dock, cause the liver to want to produce more bile than it normally would. Adding the fat in means that the liver has to dump that bile into the small intestine. We know in this culture that high blood pressure and high cholesterol are really common. All cholesterol gets reabsorbed in the large intestine unless there's sufficient fiber there to pick it back up. If there's fiber in the large intestine, it binds the cholesterol and you pass it as feces. So I'm going to show you a strategy of how to remove large amounts of cholesterol from your body. If you were somebody with high cholesterol, you could do this every day, or you could do this just routinely every once in a while in order to help to lower your cholesterol levels or just to keep your blood really clean. This is coconut butter. It's very similar to coconut oil except that it has a lot of the solids in it still. I find this to be really nice in drinks. We're going to add that right in. The difference of coconut oil is the pure fat. This has some of the fibers of coconut left in it. As far as having a drink to give us energy, the fats produce quite a lot. There's a lot of calories in the fats, and so this is also a drink that would be a meal because it's going to have high energy in it. We're going to add sugars into it as well. This is honey. This is going to add in some sweet, some glucose.
It looks like it was just pulled out of a hive somewhere.
Yeah, pretty recently, I think. So we'll sweeten this drink up. Now, we know honey raises blood sugar pretty significantly. It's mostly glucose and fructose. And so it has a pretty strong effect on our blood sugar. That's great because we need to have blood sugar in order to have energy. But it can be too much for some people because sometimes people have issues with, say, fungus like candida, or some people with diabetic type conditions need to restrict the amount of sugars that they add into their bloodstream. Honey definitely has the ability to raise blood sugar. This is a sugar called yacone syrup. It comes out of the Amazon. It comes from a root called the yacone root. What's interesting about the sugars in yacone is that they don't break down into blood sugar. Not the way that honey does, not the way that agave does. The sugar in here is called FOS, fructooligosaccharides. It's a sugar smaller than the polysaccharides that are in, say, reishi mushroom, which don't have a sweet taste at all. They're such large, complicated sugars that they don't taste sweet. The really small, simple sugars, like glucose, fructose, lactose, which is the milk sugar, they all taste sweet in our mouth. Fructooligosaccharides is sandwiched right between the small sugars and the large sugars. It tastes sweet to our palate, but doesn't raise the blood sugar. As it moves through the intestine, you can't digest it, but your bacteria can. And what they do is feed on it, and that causes them to proliferate, which means this feeds your intestinal bacteria. Now the thing is, too much of this means too much bacteria eating sugar, which means a lot of gas. So we want to use this sparingly, but it's great to keep the intestinal flora of our our whole internal ecology going, particularly if you're somebody who's come through a lot of antibiotics or been in a hospital or been through a lot of sterile environments. This is a great way to rebuild your intestinal flora. Great used in conjunctions with probiotics and also fermented foods. So we're not going to add too much in there, but we're going to give it a splash. It's got a taste kind of like molasses. It's a dark sugar. It's got a deep, rich taste. Not kind of the spiky sugar of agave or honey.